invite or not. You know what I'm saying? And this might not work. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just wouldn't see, it says it's still bad. We'll see. I'm
Is
on
that
a
because of the
yeah.
weather?
Yeah, so I'm on hotspot right now. I don't know. I got really high speed internet, but I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so we got everything's closed. The whole schools got. I mean, I guess it's a holiday today, but it wouldn't have mattered. I think they're already shutting down schools tomorrow and everything. But the internet's bad either way.
Yeah. So
So I don't know.
how long is it supposed to last for you? A couple of days?
Um, it gets 13 a night. It doesn't get above freezing tomorrow. 13 again that night. So Wednesday is probably the day it gets above freezing. But like I said, right now, we didn't get very much precipitation, but we got some. So like all the roads are wet, and I'm sure every bridge is frozen over. The roads will. The cops. We had some reports that they said, "Hey, don't drive around town."
Huh.
So I'm sure it's 23. I'm shocked that it's not frozen more. But when it gets down to 13 tonight, it's going to be, you know, it's
Yeah,
going to freeze everything over. It just, I know. And listen, I get you guys up north make fun of us for shutting stuff down. And I agree with y'all that people think it's cold down here. But I will say it's this stupid thing that we just don't get snow. It's the snow's never the big deal. It's like that we fluctuate so much in temperature and it freezes and unfreezes our water that comes down, right? Precipitation. And that's what we just get ice. We get ice way worse than everyone else.
Well, and your houses aren't insulated the same way either. So don't you
No.
have to worry about pipes freezing down there?
Yeah. So and so I was watching TikTok last night, and it was having these this isn't a sexist thing, but it was all girls on the TikTok going, and they would be outside going, so they say I'm supposed to wrap this, and so they were showing, there was these women on thing going, I'm not from Texas, but they said grab it. So they were grabbing shirts and rags and taping it up, and they're like, this is what they said. And then they were making fun of the fact of trying to find the right drip to so they were making, some of them were making fun of it, but then others were like trying to find the exact spot to like how to drip the thing so it, know. But yeah,
we don't worry about that up here. We're built to deal with that for 5 months out of the year.
Right.
Straight. Yeah.
And so last a bunch of that. So I went to my camp yesterday, turned the heat on, made sure the last person was there that didn't drain the water the right way. So because we usually turn off the water and then drain it. And when I turned it, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness I came, because water all came out of them pipes. So it would have busted all those pipes. Turn the heat on just to give it a little bit of so the pipes inside get a little warmth on them. But it's not going to be, this is going to be, I think, pretty mild.
What will this do to the fish right now down there? Does this make them bite better?
So no, because we got so many Florida strains. So it's not, they don't like, so here's the thing is from where we're at, when it drops below 60, that's when the trap bite gets on, right? In the grass and all, like that's when everyone gets excited. When we go to Falcon.
And are you talking water temps or air temps?
Yes.
Below 60?
No, I'm sorry, water temps.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's, which isn't even cold, right? That's nothing. But that's when they that's when everyone gets excited around the grass around here. That's when it hits that magic. When it finally gets down to like 58, that's when all that grass stuff starts kicking off. When we go down to Falcon, and it would be January, and it would go it'd be like 62 and drop down to 58. Oh my God, you would have thought that the lake froze over. I mean, they shut down. Like they freak out. So, and it's why the topwater bite, it's why I think I'm sure it's a little bit of the northern strain, and just the fact that fish up north will bite a topwater way in colder weather than they do down here. Like once it hits below 60, that top water bite down here gets very difficult. I mean, you can do it at it's a day-to-day type, like, maybe you had a warmer night or some sun or something, but they don't really like it getting too, once it gets too cold, it gets tough.
So if you were heading out on Rayburn right now, what would you be doing? Would you go deep?
I don't know. Like, so listen, I've done a very good job of kind of keeping this. So our biggest tournament starts this weekend, and then like it's like back to back. So this weekend for us is the 35,000 for first. The next weekend is 60,000. There's some like boat incentive stuff in there. So I mean, I'm not just going to go ahead and just say that you can catch them pretty much doing anything right now. But it will. Here's what I will say. Live scope has showed me fish don't really stop feeding. They just get really weird and different, and like they're hard to find. I thought that I kind of was always under the impression that they're like me, right? I want to go hibernate when it gets like this. But they don't stop biting. They just get kind of like, they just get different and act different, and they don't get it. They're not as easy to go find is the thing I'll say. But if you find them, they're usually fairly easy to catch. They're just very hard to find. They set up really weird. I think they kind of get out there in places no one ever fishes.
Are they grouped up more?
I wouldn't say no. Huh. Not more than, I mean, you catch them in the summertime grouped up and in the fall grouped up. No, I think they're just, but they're, I think they get out there really deep. I think the shallow ones are harder to catch. I think the deeper ones aren't, but man, they act different. I think they get out there deeper where you wouldn't like, there's no drop off or nothing. They're just out there. I think that's the main thing is they get out there where people don't cast. And when you get out there where people don't cast, it's not a drop off. So it's like a drop off might be 100 foot of a cast, right? But then off the drop off, you got a quarter of a mile. We'll go try to find them in that quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
That's what I think happens.
So Rayburn's down 7 foot, right? It's low right now.
We can talk about Rayburn, right?
I can, yeah. I can't talk about Toledo Bend.
Okay. Well, man, like, listen, I was talking to just some of y'all. I'm friends with y'all, so like I never know which one. I forget which one. I know Toledo's almost off limits for everyone. Everyone's coming to Toledo.
Yeah.
But I thought, invitationals.
So invitationals are going to Rayburn. But
and I was talking to Rick Harris last week, and so I couldn't talk about Rayburn.
Yeah.
So.
But you don't want to talk about Rayburn because you got big tourneys coming up.
Well, I don't mind talking about Rayburn for certain things, but yeah, I'm going to be probably a little bit on the shy side about talking about Rayburn for a little bit.
Yeah. So, look, how about this? I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yeah, you can ask me all of them. I just might not answer them.
Is there still a shallow bite even though the cover's not in the water at Rayburn?
Oh, there's tons of cover. There's more cover in the water now than ever.
What?
Grass.
Well, that's not. I'm talking like shoreline related stuff.
No,
hay grass. I mean, none of that's in the water.
You don't want that in the water. Hydrilla is like King Kong compared to every single thing else. So I don't care how low the lake ever gets, if there's hydrilla in the water, Rayburn does better with more hydrilla than it does with all the trees, bushes, hay grass, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So even with it being down 7 foot, there's still enough water in the grass?
There's more grass in the water. So we don't get too cold. So this is the one thing I've never been able to figure out, and I haven't met anyone who ever has. Grass on our lakes, or grass on Rayburn. I think it probably does it at Toledo. Doesn't do it on that. For sure on Rayburn. It's like there's wintertime grass and there's like summertime grass. And so you'll have grass grow more in the winter in places. And I'm not saying like it's known for growing there in the winter. It's just like grass will pop up in the wintertime, and then it'll pop up in the summertime in places, and then all of a sudden, like, you'll find some in the wintertime and go, wait till this grass is in the summertime, and then it'll be gone. And then other places it'll grow in the summertime. And it's just weird how it pops. Like, you can get excited about some grass and then it won't be there. And then other grass grows up, and by the time it gets it might start growing a little bit now. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I know they say grass dies in the wintertime, but I think it's the grass that's already matted up, and then it starts to like lay down. So that's where it dies. It's just a weird deal. So what happens is there's a lot of grass, as it was, we were so warm, say in October, that it was still growing in October. And since it was dropping, it was growing out there further out, deeper. And so as the water drops and it's gotten cold, that stuff kept growing, and then the water caught up to it. So a lot of that grass that you wouldn't think is that good in October is good now. But no, there's more grass now than it's good.
Yeah.
And they're catching. I mean, people are catching them out of it. So I will say that. See, what is this? So that's the thing, is that's not necessarily a true statement. We might have deep grass. So it kind of like a couple things factor in that. We usually don't get too dirty, but yeah, seeing this guy goes, so here it goes. See, a lot of these guys get it too. If it floods, it'll kill it. If it comes up at a decent rate, it'll be okay. You don't want it to come up quick, and then some of that stuff will look phenomenal, and then all of a sudden you go out there in May and it starts looking dirty, and then it's like it's not good, and then other grass is growing better. So I mean, it's
supposed to rain quite a bit over the next like 2 weeks, from what I saw. It said like rain every day.
It's been raining a bunch, but it hadn't mattered. It's only come up 0.1, or maybe it's come up an inch. But so they keep saying, and I don't ever believe them. They might be right this year, but every year you see that it's the same rumors, and everyone says they're going to work on the dam. They're dropping it 14 foot, all this stuff. They said that they were going to drop it 6 foot, or let it get to 6 foot and work on stuff. It's 7 foot now. It does seem like it's staying low, and they're not. I don't know. I don't care. Right now we're so low. Even if it rain, it'd have to rain a lot. But
does Rayburn fluctuate more than Toledo? Because Toledo's only down like 3.5 or something like that.
Yeah, Toledo they regulate it though. So they regulate it based on, they'll never let it get too high, and they don't care about it getting low. But
they could be doing dam work then on Rayburn. You never know if they're keeping it down.
They probably are this year. I just hear the rumor every year. But I don't, I like it low like this. I think it's way better for the lake.
Yeah.
It makes the grass grow. Like when it gets up high, I don't think it's that, depending on when it gets high, I don't think it's that great. But you definitely want more grass in Rayburn. You put more grass in every lake in the country, that lake's going to get better.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Are you starting to see some grass growing up north then too on Rayburn?
I haven't been.
The last time I was there, man, there was.
What's up north?
I mean, it was what?
What's up north? What do you call it north?
I mean, above the bridge.
Oh yeah, there's grass up. There's always kind of that's the part that the grass, now that the grass has kind of solidified down towards the south end. Once it gets solidified down there, it doesn't really change too much. The north end above the bridge is where it changes, because it gets that's where it gets dirty. And, and it doesn't grow as deep, so it has a bigger chance of getting, going one way or the other.
Yeah.
Where the grass down deep, down south, if it grows in 12 foot and it drops 7 foot, it's still in 5, right? Well, it's never going to go 12 foot up north. So, yeah. So here, I mean, look, see, guys are awesome. Yeah. So I mean, they're working on something.
Doing something.
Yeah. So hey, so 168 do not generate. Oh, I don't know. They were putting rocks on the dam Saturday. Sorry, I was reading comments.
Yeah.
So there you go. So in Wisconsin, what does everything freeze over?
I mean, we're a solid rock right now.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just
dude. I mean,
making sure.
yeah. No,
Well,
I mean,
y'all are on the you're on the upper Mississippi, right?
well, I'm dead smack in the center part of Wisconsin. So
Well, I mean, but
I'm pretty far north.
does the
But it's
Mississippi River kind of
yeah,
start
that
where you're at?
border, yeah, that separates Minnesota from Wisconsin. We've
Okay,
got
but do those things does that freeze?
oh, yeah. I mean,
And
the main channel might stay open a little bit, but like right now it's probably completely froze over. Like you wouldn't want to walk on it, but it'll freeze completely over. I mean,
the
we've got
river will.
yeah, the
Okay,
main channel of the river.
that's
I
what I
mean, you've
was
got
wondering. Yeah.
yeah, the backwaters are all completely froze over and guys will be ice fishing. We've got right now 3 or 4 day span where we might hit 0. We might hit 1 degree. You know, we're gonna have like if it wasn't froze over, it'll be froze over probably by tonight. Yeah, dude. I mean, we lock up completely, and I don't mean ice. I just mean like we are frozen solid from Thanksgiving through end of March. Like,
I'm gonna put this comment on there. Okay. I don't ask this question because if I did it looks like I'm being an absolute jackwagon. Okay. But I have to agree with him. Okay. So I agree totally with this guy. I shouldn't say that out loud. Like, I mean, and listen, the only thing I'll say about it is this: there's no reason anyone wants to live in California. Like, when you hear people from California, they just said, dude, you can never imagine what the weather's like out there, right?
yeah,
I don't want to live in California for other reasons, but I love Texas, so it doesn't matter. But like, it is pretty awesome. Like, after this is done, it's going to be 60 on Thursday. Like, I can go
yep.
fishing again. I can go fishing now if I really wanted to. I mean, there's nothing you can't go out there and go fishing right now. Is it at some point in time? I know you're used to it and what that, but I mean, what if
You
you
never get
if
used
you
to
spent
it.
a year down here? Would it change your mind?
Well, I mean, the honest answer is if it was just me right now, I would move. Like I hate the winters drive me nuts.
Okay.
And it doesn't do anything to help me in terms of my fishing career, right? Like I can't go out and make a video even. I mean,
I
unless it's
know.
ice fishing. So yeah, it definitely is not ideal. For us, a lot of it is, we're kind of situated here now, right? Like my wife's got her chiropractic clinic, my kids are in school, like it's not just like pick up and move. But in an ideal world, yeah, absolutely. What I would love to do is have a house. If I could do anything, I'd have a house like for the summers in like Door County, Wisconsin to fish like the Great Lakes nonstop. And then I would have someplace down south to fish during the winters. Like that would be an ideal situation for me.
You know, a lot of
It
those guys.
sucks, dude. These winters, they're miserable, dude. Like I don't care how much somebody's like, "Oh, you get used to it." You don't, it's you walk outside right now without gloves and a hat, and you'll feel body parts dying. Like, and it doesn't take long. Like you will feel it.
Yeah, and I'm not a cold weather guy. I mean, no, I'm not one. I'm fairly decent down here. Like, I get out in it so much compared to my wife and stuff. Like she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, are you not cold? I feel their hands. My daughter's like, I feel their hands, and I'm like, well, how are y'all's hands this cold? This is ridiculous. I'm
Yeah.
warm as can be. I guess because I'm used to getting out there, but I still don't. I don't like it. Like I want it to be 90 every day. I'm fine with it being 90.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind, from a clothing standpoint and like what I need to do to keep myself warm. But man, when it gets cold, which is most of the winter, it's just not cool. I mean, it's not fun. I mean, there's some people up here that like live for ice fishing, and that really is, there's kind of a saying that people love that love ice fishing, you generally love to drink and don't get along with their wife. Like that's what a lot of people say about ice fishermen that are like diehard. They just don't want to be home, and it's like it's an easy way for them to get like away from the house. But the reality is like it's just something to do, I think, for most people to pass time during, the coldest part of the year.
Yeah, I think it's one of those deals where it sounds people try to make it more fun than it is.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, people do things to make it more fun. That's the crazy thing. Like, I have no urge to go do it myself. It's like a lot. It's not that I have an issue with the work aspect of it, but it's a lot of work to go do it by yourself. I will do it if I've got like a bunch of buddies, that want to go. And it's like you go because you like to BS with your buddies. You take a football, you toss the football around, you bring a grill, you grill out. It's basically like tailgating without a football game. Like people bring everything they can to make ice fishing fun, and it's generally not the ice fishing that is fun. It's the other crud that you bring with to make it fun.
Well, I might get killed by this comment, but I've kind of viewed duck hunting like that, and you'll hear a lot of old time duck hunters will say the same thing. Is that going waking up at 3 in the morning, going out there, do it like for me, you do a whole bunch of work, early, cold, nasty weather, put out stuff, do all that stuff to kill like 6 ducks. And if it's really good, you can kill those ducks pretty darn quick. And it was like you did a whole bunch of work for maybe less than an hour of a hunt. And then you got to pack it all up, ride
Yeah.
the duck boat back. Like it seems like a whole bunch of work where I can go fishing and it's like I'm driving there I'm driving there in my heated truck. I finally get to the lake. I don't have to really drive anywhere too far in the lake if I don't want to. Go out there and I can fish for like 12 hours. Right? I can catch 2 fish, I can catch 100 fish, but I still get to fish for like if I'm catching 100, I don't have to
Yeah.
stop after I catch 5, right? So I get to
Yeah,
fish all day
dude.
long. And then, if you fish on certain lakes, all I got to do is just like drive drive a mile back to the boat ramp and go. I'm sure there's guys that duck hunt that have that duck hunting opportunity to do that. Man, I want to go duck hunting with you if you've got that. But if I've got to I'm not saying if I have to do a bunch of work, but I couldn't imagine trying to do that 3-4 times a week. It seems like a whole bunch of work to kill 6 ducks.
And you're also doing that still while you have like open water. Like
Right.
the biggest thing is it just gets so cold to do, like you don't want to do anything. Like that's the thing. It
What
just is
is
not ideal.
And see, like here comes the duck hunting stuff. Like, I get the duck hunting like this, dude. I'm all about this. Like, that's my kind of duck hunting. Like, I like, you know, that's cool. So, you know,
Yeah.
hopefully I won't get killed on the. Here comes the duck. I mean, I'm not talking like I like to like duck hunting's fun. I'm just saying it can be some work at times with
I mean,
not
it's
that much
kind of,
reward.
yeah, the whole thing, it's kind of like ice fishing is how I look at some of the people that you see, deer hunting out of a out of a stand, but when you see their stand, they've got like cable TV antennas and like
Um,
heaters and everything on the side, and you're like, well, they kind of just created a little cabin and they're hunting out of a cabin at that point.
have you seen the
That's
duck
kind of how I
hunting?
feel about ice fishing.
Have you seen the duck hunting blinds that like you walk underneath and I mean, you can like live there for like a week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Well, that's the big trend with ice fishing up here right now is like how extravagant can you make an ice shack? I mean, guys are putting bunk beds, they're putting kitchens. I mean, these are like it looks like somebody took a fully loaded RV and drove it out on the ice. Only there's like no wheels and you just can remove the floor. Like it's pretty crazy how
Well,
extravagant now these things are getting.
and every time
And
I look down there,
it's all to make ice fishing fun. That's
and
the
they're
thing.
how do I do this? And I get down there and the rod's this big. They're not holding it. It's set up with like this weird little flag, and they're reeling
Yeah.
it in. And I'm like, your rod's 2 foot long.
Yeah.
And they're like reeling it in, and I'm just going, I don't once again, it's why I'm not a professional cat fisherman. Because I don't like sitting up on the bank with the 4 rods, lying down the bank. I mean, it would be fun if I caught a 50-pound catfish, but like sitting there waiting. I mean, that's why I don't have a seat in my boat. I don't even sit down when I fish. Like I
Yeah.
want to be
It's
casting and moving.
not to bring forward facing sonar into this,
No,
but
we're gonna bring it. We're gonna bring it
it's
in. Let's go ahead.
amazing how much forward facing sonar has changed ice fishing too. Cause now you've got if so there's kind of two ways to ice fish. You got your 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 tip ups or tip down, something that holds the rod for you, or you've got the other aspect of guys who are hold jumping and jigging with their ice rod. And the guys that are jigging now that are all going with forward facing sonar, what they do is they get out there and they like drill, I mean, 100 holes, more than that, couple hundred holes, and they have one guy who gets in the middle,
And he's
puts
looking for him.
the forward facing sonar down. He scans around and then basically directs guys, okay, 40 feet, over here, go to that hole, go to that hole. And it's like, it's you got one guy who's like a sniper, and then the other guys just walk around with their ice rod and they're just jigging in the hole that their buddy tells them to go to. It's totally different than it used to be. I mean, you'll go out, like we've got a boat ramp down by down from the house from me that's on a backwater off the river, and it can get pretty good. And like I drove by the other day and you look out there and it's like there's a hole every 5 feet. It's like people make grids and they just drill as many holes as they can because they want to be able to drop on top of the fish with the forward facing.
Well, so I don't know if you know. So you've been gone. We'll get
Oh
into
boy.
maybe one time we'll actually talk about what a title is, because that's why and guys, if y'all don't realize, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I called up Matt and I was like, hey Matt, or I text him, I'm like, hey, what should the title be? He writes back, no idea. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the help. And the reason I say that
I laughed when I sent that to you, by the way.
yeah, I know, because I was like, I don't know what it is either, because that's the whole point of this podcast. Like, we're live. That's why we do this live, guys, is because we want to take y'all's interaction, and we'll just start talking, and then every once in a while I'll see, here we go, right? We'll see a comments, and we'll kind of sometimes go with those comments. Guys were asking about Rayburn. Then it got into duck hunting and ice fishing and whatever. So that's why we do it that way, that we can get off topic and like, who cares? But so you were gone last week. I tried to get you. People don't know. I was trying to get Matt on,
Yep.
and you were. I'll say this. I had one random comment on YouTube, and he was asking about, hey man, how can you? It was a co-angler comment, like, what tackle should I bring? And I was like, yeah, I haven't done one of these in a while. Cool. Totally the most harmless thing I could ever think about, and I did it. And I rarely put stuff up on Facebook, but then I did a thing about Facebook, right? I just put like the thumbnail, which was a whole bunch of rods. Dude, it went off into this weird forward fake. I have almost 200 comments on this stupid thing because people went all over with it. It's whatever. So it made me do a whole bunch more other videos. And then it basically got into live scope and co-anglers. And then every once in a while, guys are like, I don't want to talk about live scope anymore. And I'm like, hey, I didn't either. I didn't even go that route. Everyone else did. And I know you don't want to bring it up, but a guy did ask about, well, you brought up about this and a lot of this stuff. And I want to ask you, I want to ask you this before we go to, because I really want to know what you did for the last week. But
Okay.
they bring up this live scope and co-anglers, and I think me and you both have the same opinion on it. I mean, it's not good for them. It's they can say whatever they want to, but it's going to be harder on co-anglers, no doubt. You can't
Yeah.
fault the boater because you can't tell the boater. I'm not saying what you can and can't do. You can't say, "Hey, boater, you're about to go win this thing, but I don't really want you to go live." Like if it's the way to win, I'm going to go do it, right? If I thought it was the way to win, I would go do it. So if I would, if I somehow found the fish live scoping, I would go do it. Just like I would go sight fish, just like I'd go run the bank as fast as I could if that was the case. Like I'm going to do what it takes to win. But it's no doubt it hurts the co-angler. But then there's a lot of questions about what do you think about like co-anglers bringing their own live scope in the back? But I think there's a rule against it. I don't read all the rules for all the tournament organizations, but I think there's some rules in there about not letting you do it because of I think it's because you're not allowed to have GPS. It's a
Yeah.
form of GPS because of the screen.
Yep.
Am I right with that?
But no, I'm pretty sure. Well, I believe you are accurate with respect to like the opens in the Toyotas. I don't know if that rule goes down to like the BFLs and lower levels, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard people mention that before in terms of wanting to bring a unit. But the thing is, the forward facing sonar only works on units that are capable of, or that all have GPS built into them. And because the rule says you can't bring a GPS unit as a co-angler, because what was happening is co-anglers were bringing little handheld GPS units and marking the pro spots, and they didn't want that, so they ended up mandating that co-anglers had to get rid of the GPS units. But I believe all forward-facing sonar is only usable with units that have GPS on them. So the question is, if one of the companies came out with forward-facing sonar that did not have built-in GPS, could the co-angler use it? And I would think that they would be able to, because the rule is regarding GPS and not forward-facing sonar.
Yeah. So they'd have to. I brought this up the other day about like what annoys you about someone said something about all this stuff. I'm like, man, yeah, co-anglers really don't bother me almost ever. I said the most little petty things that ever bothers me, other than like if one of them stole, that would be anybody would get mad about someone like kind of going back, stealing a spot or telling people
Yeah.
what you're doing because there's rules about that. But I was like, man, it's like not being able to like go is like picking up and like running and gunning with a co-angler that's like way slow. And you're like, every single time you go to start the boat, you got to wait on them. That would be to me the work that you would have to go into if you were going to do that style. Now, if you're running and gunning, I wouldn't think live scope would be your deal. But man, imagine having to like unhook that thing. I guess you could probably put it on the power pole unit maybe, or like the bracket or something. But you'd have to have some little mechanism to kind of like a quick release. And I don't know, man.
You could put one just on a pole that you held. That just was free, where if you let go of the pole, you drop it. But you could have one just on a pole, and then like when you saw a fish, pull the pole out and make a cast at where you thought the fish was.
So
I don't know if it's worth it, to be honest. Like the amount
right.
of struggle to go through with it, but
Is it? And see, this is great. Is this what fishing in 2024 will be like? Really? That's what I'm saying. What if this is actually what 2024 goes into? That this is, you got co-anglers out there like if if you're gonna start bringing your life, you know how the whole thing, boaters. There's like 2 or 3 things that boaters love saying and co-anglers love saying. I don't like repeating them because I get tired of listening to them. But it's like, hey, if you don't like it, move to the front of the boat. If you start bringing your own depth finders and forward face, I'm like, yeah, maybe you need to bring a boat as well. But it would be It seems like a lot of work in the back of the boat. I will say that. But hey, if I guess if you that's
I
what you want to do,
yeah.
that might be what 2024 is like.
I mean, if it was legal, guys would do it. There's not any doubt that guys would do it. And I don't even know that I've got that much of an issue with it. Like, if you're the boater, yeah, it may not be good, but the reality is, like, at that point, I'd rather have the co-angler scanning around, fishing, let's say I'm going down a row of
I
docks.
already know where you're going. I love it.
I'd
I love
rather
it.
have him scanning out behind the other side and give me what I wanna fish fully. Like, if that makes him happy,
And no
like, I'd be
complaints.
all for it. Yeah,
And they wouldn't complain because it's like, now what are
yeah,
you going to complain? Because, like, there's some guys out there that catch them that never complain because they catch them. It's kind of the guys that don't, or you just got complainers. But yeah, it'd be hard to complain like, I zeroed today. Well, so why not? Well, it wasn't because of forward facing sonar. Now what is it? Like
yeah.
that. Hey, what would
Y
suck? Let me tell you this: be careful what you wish for, because without forward facing sonar, I kind of contribute to this that sometimes I'm not saying I fish harder, but I would find myself fishing. This is going to sound weird, with a lot more confidence on a new lake than sometimes my home lake. And say it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've spent a ton of time on my lake at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a bad day, right?
Mhm.
On a day that I have tried everything on my lake that I like. If it was Rayburn and it's 2 o'clock and I have like stunk it up all day, I don't have this confidence that all of a sudden from 2 to 3 I'm going to catch them, because I've been fishing that lake a long time. I
Yeah,
missed the boat somewhere in there, and I know I did. And trust me, I would have already changed. I don't know what to go do at that point on a lake I'm not familiar with. And maybe I should bring up like Ross Barnett this past year in the Open, or 2 years ago. I had two fish with 15 or 20 minutes left, and I went to this one little bitty pocket. I mean, it's a little bitty, you can flip to both sides of it, and caught a 3-pounder and two twos in 8 minutes. And I did good in that
yeah,
event. But I went there going, I can do this. I can do this, because I didn't have any bad, right? I didn't have any, like, I didn't know, right? That's why if the co-angler got back there with the forward facing sonar and actually got to look around and was like, hey man, I haven't seen a fish in an hour, that's gonna bring down his confidence way more than just like cast. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Oh, dude, well, that's why a lot of times, for what you just said, is why I would rather fish a lake I've never seen before. Because the thought process, if you're not catching them and you're on a new body of water, for me, the thought is, I haven't found them. Like, I've fished dead water. If you're on a lake that you feel like you know really well and you're struggling, the reality is, you're probably going to go hit another 20 spots that you've already know that probably aren't going to pan out either, because for whatever reason they're not doing what you're doing that day. But it is a I mean, that whole discussion with the co-angler, I would be interested, I guess, to see how many co-anglers would even bring it because of the hassle that you're talking about. But it wouldn't surprise me if we actually saw that happen at some point.
Well, and the other thing too is, now you get say a co-angler goes out there and wins it and talks about it. You want to talk about you want to talk about that division getting mad, going, so now I got to go compete against this guy with a forward facing sonar that's bringing it out on a boat. Like,
Yeah.
that's gonna call. I didn't. Someone kind of made a comment about that. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like, you talk about those guys getting mad that now they have to compete against other guys doing it.
So somebody
Hey,
just made a comment about the what do they call them? Like crappie brakes or whatever they are. Those propellers or the petroleum motors that are going on the power poles. Are you running
yeah.
those? Have you
Am
thought about
I?
running them? You're
Um,
running them, aren't you?
no, no, no. I can go
Oh,
take a picture of my boat right now. No, there's no doubt though. Those are things I don't even have to look at. There's no doubt those things would work. They would help. No doubt.
so so would you use them? I think I know why you think they would be beneficial.
It's not even a question on whether or not they would be useful. 1,000,000% they'd be useful.
And are you saying it from a forward-facing sonar standpoint, you could scan with your trolling motor while using those in the back, or are you saying it
No,
more along the
so
lines
it's
of like
I think of them just like
betting fish, not getting too close?
yeah, I think of it just like power poles. Is that like you're
Yeah.
working down a flat and all of a sudden you get a bite, you don't want to blow it out. And so like power poles were the best thing in the world to just stop your momentum and just stop.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Like if you're going around, I don't care if it's fishing a brush pile, fishing spotlight has eliminated that if you're on the spot. But if
Mhm.
you're moving around, I don't if you're moving around fishing a ledge, fishing whatever, and you get a bite, like a lot of times you can spotlight, but definitely for forward facing sonar, if you're moving around and stuff and you see something, you want to backtrack into the wind or whatever it might be, you can now do that. So,
From 20 feet further than where you were before.
well, you just don't have to blow it out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like now
Yeah,
you're kicking it in from further
you're
away
kicking
from the
it
fish.
in, and I don't know how it works. I would probably I'm just assuming I would have it in full on straight backup mode. You can't turn them, right?
I have never I don't even know how you
I,
function them. I'm
I
assuming
don't either.
there's a foot control or a pedal or something?
Right. So you could back up at the same time you have your forward facing sonar still looking forward too.
Yep, yep. That's what
If
I mean,
that's
like, you could yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I would
you could use them still from that standpoint. I really don't I know what they are, but
oh,
I
is it
haven't
this
looked
thing?
into them at all. Yeah, that's where the comment was,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, it sounds like I saw, Dave Mercer over at the end of last week, and we were talking about, like, what guys are putting on their boat, and he made it sound like there's gonna be a whole ton of them on the Elite Series next year.
See, and I text Zona last week and I said, "Hey," and I haven't texted him. I need to probably text him today, but I texted him last week. Said, "Hey, man, you going to do a podcast with me?" And we kind of talked about doing it this week. And so I was kind of going to bring up that and a lot of the main topic. And look, man, a lot of this is just wishful fun thinking and like make believe. But it wasn't this. But I did want to say, hey, man, I would love if they made one tournament a year, and I think me and you, I don't know if me and you and Andrew talked about that, just one tournament a year, no forward facing sonar, just one. I listen, and this is what I'll bring up to him. There's no doubt in my mind. I think it will be 100% the most viewed tournament of the year. And I would love someone to argue that with me. And I would love for Bass to argue that with me, saying, why would that not be a good thing? Controversial, non-controversial, people would be like the good, there's nothing the no bad press, bad press is still good press. I just think I think people would tune in for like the drama.
Yeah, it definitely would gain interest. That's for sure. It could potentially backfire though. I feel like where it had so much attention or it created, I don't know, where whatever there could be something that happened at that tournament that would make people say, that this is so much better, or it's so much worse. Like I could see that kind of backfiring, but I think from a view standpoint, and when I say backfiring, I'm talking from an organizational standpoint, like where if they want to go in the direction of continuing to use forward facing sonar, they could catch a lot of additional slack based on how a tournament like that went. I think from a viewership standpoint, it would draw great numbers. I think people would be
Yeah.
very interested in that for sure. As an angler, dude, like I've mentioned it before. Last
Hope that's not me. It could. I hope that I don't know if it's me or him. And this is the problem too. If maybe y'all can hear him and not me, I don't know. But the problem is I love doing the live ones because of the comments, and you can't do live without you can't do it without them, right? So there's always like, I'm sure some guys, every once in a while, guys are like, hey, get a better microphone or do this or do that. But everyone else that usually does podcasts don't do them live. That's why, and we don't have, I'm not the Pat McAfee show with ESPN backing us to do this, to get all that done. Yep. It must not have been me because I'm still here. But that's going to be a problem every once in a while when we do live is we can't control this stuff. We usually do pretty good. I think this is the first time I've ever lost Matt in any one of these things. I will say there's until he gets back, this is a problem. There's this question. This one's just kind of funny. I get that. This is the topic. I know Matt has to leave at 3. These are topics I really wanted to get in this, shared weight deal, because the more I understand it could be cool, but it's got some problems. But go ahead, Matt. Hey, I covered for you. You're good. Keep going.
Well, I don't know where I cut off.
I can't remember either.
All I was saying is, like, with the whole forward facing thing, like,
your opinion on Fort. Yeah, it was your opinion is what you were going on.
Yeah, I was just like, I had a shot at AOI last year. I ended up finishing 3rd in points, and it was not a main tool for me. I think I weighed 3 or 4 fish all year using it. There were several tournaments where I went and I caught limits doing it, but then I ended up culling them out doing other things that were not forward facing sonar related. So, like, it's hard for me to sit here and be like, if you don't have it, you can't compete, because you can compete with it. I think there are definitely lakes where you 100% can't compete, but I don't feel like you absolutely have to rely on it 100% of the time to do well. And from that standpoint, like with the tournament you were talking about, like if they had one tournament a year that didn't allow it, I don't know. I guess it's not a huge thing either way for me.
Let me say this about the compete, because I really want to get some of these people have like comments and I want to get to them. We won't be able to get to them. That sucks. The compete thing, I'm not going to go against you on the compete thing. I won Angler of the Year too last year, and I didn't use it very much. In fact, the reason I probably won Angler of the Year is because of Darnell, and all the live scopers did so horrible, right? I mean, a lot of the guys that were in the top from Rayburn live scoped them, and when they all went to Darnell and did horrible, and then that's when I moved up to first in Angler of the Year, and then we come back to Rayburn, and I use live scope a little bit, but I mean, when I mean that is like I didn't live scope. I kind of used it here and there, like in the mornings. There was a shad spawn thing going on. Like I caught some fish, but really I caught some. I mean, I was frogging them. I flipped them in the grass. I mean, I wasn't live scoping any of that stuff. So it kind of like just helped me get a limit at times, or whatever. But it wasn't like a big deal. I would say that you can compete, and I could win Angler of the Year on 3 events. If we had kept going to live scope lakes, and I can use live scope, I would have had to have used live scope more. And what I think the problem is competing, you can compete. What I'll say is there's times that no matter how good you are fishing, there can be a guy with live scope who's a great fisherman. It's irrelevant. Their bag is like, you're fishing for second or third.
I'd also say that if you use it, I won't say use it. If you have it, it opens up a lot of potential water that you can't fish if you don't have it. Correct. Like there's a lot more options with it, and I think that's one of the reasons why it can be so valuable. You've got this comment up right here about making it a shared weight.
So this was that Coinger thing. Like you missed a lot of this stuff, but it was dude. All last week was Coinger videos for me, and because it went on a rampage, and then it got into like the Bass Open the one Open in California where they do it, and I've heard some good things, but I still have a hard time. I still have a hard time saying that that everything that I've put into fishing is going to be, could possibly also be based upon some guy I just met that day that has put in, 1 year of fishing to get good. And I've spent my whole life. And now I have to rely on him, maybe possibly helping me or hurting me in an event. It's just, I don't know if I can wrap my head around that.
Well, here's the thing. So like I've fished the US Open 4 times on Lake Mead. That shared weight format makes for one of the most enjoyable tournaments you can fish. And what I mean by that is you are working as a team, you're high-fiving, you're excited for each other. There is a lot of kind of luck that goes into the draw, though, for both anglers, right? You could get paired with a great backseater, you could get paired with a great pro, or vice versa. The thing is, at a professional level, like, you can't have, and this is my opinion, and I say this about all of the sport of fishing, really, like, you can't have something that's got so much variable affecting the performance of what should be a professional sport, an individual professional sport. So there is way too much impact for that on the pro, if you want to put it that way. So you really, in my opinion, you can't do that at the professional level. I think it's a phenomenally well-run tournament. I would recommend anybody to fish that event. Like, it is an amazing tournament, but I also don't feel like at the top level, at the Elite Series or the BPT, that should take place. Like, it just is too variable.
I don't even think it should take place anywhere when it comes to that. You kept saying one thing over and over and over again. So that's a phenomenal tournament. Yeah. Said, hey, that tournament. Hey, when I went to fish that tournament. Correct. Yeah. I think when going into it, like, that's like, you're like, hey man, I've done all of this all year long. I'm going to go fish that tournament and you're prepared to fish that one tournament that way. If you had a series of 5 of them, right? So like one tournament, and it's such a popular, sponsors like people to go there. I've heard that. Like, there's a lot of things that you're like, hey, I'm going to treat this as an event. If it was a series and you're putting up money and you're practicing and doing all that, that's where, like, after a while, after like 3 events, and on the coast side, boaters, it doesn't really matter what side, you kind of get screwed over by the other one to a degree, or like you spend all this time or whatever, it's going to start having some backlash, like you're going to feel one way or the other. Some guys are going to benefit from either side of the boat catching more fish. And then other guys are going like, man, I put in a lot of, and this guy who you just met loses fish all day long for 2 tournaments in a row. You're gonna be like, I ain't fishing this ever again,
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, I had one of the years I fished it, I was in, I think, 2nd place going into the final day. And I had the fish on that last day to win the event. And I got paired with an individual who had never fished before. He was there because he drove his best friend down, who was dying of cancer, and the best friend wanted to fish the US Open. That was like a dying wish of his. So the guy I got paired with drove him down, and his buddy convinced him to fish because he didn't want him sitting in the hotel room the entire day. And I didn't know any of that when I got paired with him. And it was amazing that he did that. But I also, the first fish I had on for that day was a 2.5 pound smallmouth, and the guy didn't know how to net, like literally did not know how to net, and ended up stabbing the fish on the outside and, of the net, and, the fish came off. And I'm not blaming the guy. Like, I understand it, but I also didn't know that. And, when I look at that event, I fell short 2 fish that day of a limit. I never had a co-angler even catch a fish, but had I had 2 more small keepers that day, I could have won that event. And, I had the fish on myself, but the reality is, like, I didn't have good pairings in that. And there's a lot of luck that goes into it. So It's great for an event, a single event. It's great to create a positive atmosphere. It's a great event to get people into fishing. It's not what you do at the professional level. Like, it's just
No,
you can't do that.
no, and like I said, I mean, I just I've had yeah. Well, we always say this. So this happens to us all the time. Like our fish so many team tournaments, right? So I can't tell you. All of my buddies say the same thing. Is it like, hey man, like my buddy lost one over like 11 or 12 the other day, just fun fishing, and I think his comment, he goes, "Hey, we would have caught it in a tournament," and we say that all the time because it was like, "Hey, if I'd had a tournament with you, and the way like we're very aggressive on netting, like I
Yep.
can't tell you how many times if it jumps out there 10 foot and I'm out there one hand, I mean like I go. Our comment is get it up top, and I'm going to go get it. That's how me
Yeah.
and Russell and we almost never. I've never hooked one on the outside of the mouth. None of that stuff's ever happened. So we're aggressive on it. If one jumps, we're going to go get it. And that I'm so used to that in Coinger events, sometimes I'm like yelling at them like go get it. And they're like, and
Yeah.
they're like waiting for me to like move it into the net. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and then I forget and say, hey man, if it jumps, I rarely let it go back down. Like once I get it up, I'm gonna keep it up at time, or I'm gonna talk to them, right? So, but yeah, a lot of times we're saying, hey, we would have caught that fish if we were in a tournament. I think that would happen a lot in these events. And it's not his fault. Like, look, man, I've met so many co-anglers. I have to watch myself on how I net their fish because
Yeah.
I'm used to Russell and Brent and all my buddies that we all do the same thing. So when it gets up there, I go after it. Well, a lot of times they don't think they're not that way, which I'm not saying which one's right or wrong by any means, but a lot of them like they're playing it more. And so like I see it, and I'm about to go get it, and they're like, "Hold on, it's going down a little bit," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so then I
Yeah.
usually like have to settle down more with the way I net their fish, as opposed to how I want usually them to be more aggressive on how they net mine because I do more of trying to get it up.
Yeah, and
So
that's, that's being used to fishing with your team,
correct.
your partner. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know, experience that goes into that. There was a comment too. Brian mentions that one bass does it for the whole series, and they do it for their whole series. But each of those tournaments are individual events, meaning anybody can sign up. For the U.S. Open, they can sign up for the Arizona Open. And each of those are individual events. They do tally for like an AOY type deal, but I'm talking, specifically at like a top level individual circuit, one of the two that it just wouldn't work right. There's too much variable. There's too much uh outside influence on the performance of that pro.
Well, so if and I don't know if people know, like here's the real reason. Matt will back me up on this. I can ask Matt. You know why, or we both know why, right? We never talked about this. We both know why they did away with co-anglers in um and the FLW tour. Correct?
I mean, I don't know that there's ever been a specific like announcement as to why they've done it, but I think there's a lot of kind of reasons that went into it.
Well, I went in there, um, I went in there saying, if they ask me why don't I want co-anglers on tour, I was like, hey man, we don't have some random. There's not like a random fan like guiding you if you're in NASCAR. Like you don't get some random guy that you met that day get and ride shotgun with you if you're riding that, driving NASCAR going, hey guys coming up on your back right. That would help you, right? If you I've never driven NASCAR, but my point was is like that if they're gonna call, I'm okay if they didn't call it professionals, right? But if you can't have this entire thing about we're the best fishermen in the world and we're professionals, and by the way, we're going to put this random guy in the boat with you every day, and he's going to 100% affect your outcome of the tournament, good or bad, whatever. And And I will explain more of that. Co-anglers were allowed to practice with you. So you were allowed to have people practice with you that were in the event before the event started. I might not have a guy who's going to practice with me, but some other guy has a guy that practices with him for 3 days. No doubt that guy in that boat helped him some form or fashion. Figured out a bait, caught him this way, got a bite that he would have never have gotten. And so once again, if it wasn't the professional side of things, like the highest level, saying, by the way, someone else is going to help certain professionals and others aren't, it was wrong. And then in the event, you have guys either certain co-anglers, and I don't even want to say this because I don't even care about this part, catching more of your fish throughout the event that you might catch because it's a multi-day event. So maybe he catches, some guy with you is so good, he catches 30 that day on some small, and hurts you more for the next day. But I didn't care about that as much as a guy, as a boater going out there, lost as can be, right?
Yeah.
He's out there doing the wrong thing. And all of a sudden, the co-angler in the back knows what to do. And let me tell you something, this happened. The co-angler's back there starts catching them. The boater then finds out from the co-angler what to do and then starts catching them. You get beat by a guy who should have done horrible in the event by a co-angler that affected him. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I didn't get beat by a professional. I got beat by a co-angler who was better than the professional that helped him figure it out. I just thought, wait a minute. There's so much going on here. Like I said, this is just for the professional side. If you're going to call us professionals, win and lose by professionals, right? That's why I was like, I was against it. And there was some also shady stuff going on underneath there too. I'm gonna throw that in there too. There was some not shady stuff in like shared weights or shared fish. There were
practice
and in the tournament, co-anglers, I just don't think ever that if my co-angler should be allowed to talk to any other boater after fishing with me. And I don't care I don't care what I did, where I went, what I used, nothing. I feel like that guy, when he leaves my boat and he goes in, because a lot of times they stay with other boaters. I know for a fact that was going on where they were saying, yeah, I don't care what kind of information, it's some information that shouldn't have never been shared.
Yeah. And it may not even be purposefully like being discussed about.
True. Yeah.
But when you got the co-angler you traveled with, you've seen what he's been throwing all week, and he goes out and catches a good bag the first day and comes back and he's rigging up for the second day and he's got baits on he hasn't thrown all week. It's kind of like, what, he just figured that out, in the tournament, and he happened to get paired with a guy that smashed them too. Like, it's, that rule, I think you kind of touched on it in the beginning, but I don't know that it really was shared with the viewer, or the viewers may not have picked up. But that change was driven by the pro anglers in the tournament, meaning,
yes.
The anglers were the ones that were really concerned about it. And it had to do with, everything you mentioned. There were guys practicing with their travel partner, and as much as they weren't allowed to share information, every fish that they caught behind them shared information, even if they didn't communicate it. Every pro out there learns something from every fish that's caught in his
Correct.
boat, whether it's by him or by somebody else. And there just was a lot of, the general consensus was, we want to fish against the other pros, not potentially against some outside influence that affected the pros that I'm fishing against. Because what Todd said happened all the times. There'd be guys that struggled, had no clue what was going on, and ended up having good tournaments because the information they learned from their co-angler. And that wasn't information that was told to them. That was information they observed and then could implement into their day. And so Money Bass has up here the question about what level, do we feel it's okay? And, this may not be a well-liked opinion of mine, but I don't feel like it's necessarily fair at any level. I think the lower you get, maybe it's more acceptable because you need it almost as a way to potentially prevent cheating. But, when you're talking about guys that are putting several $1,000s down toward entry fees. It should be that boater or pro, whatever you want to call them, versus the other boaters or pros. It shouldn't, it shouldn't be against outside influence. So if you're making the case that fishing is truly a sport and it's a individual sport, then it should be individual versus individual and not individual versus the luck of the draw of whoever they got in the boat with them that day. That's my personal opinion.
That's not going
I've
to be
got great friends. I understand the idea of it, but the reality is I think most people would say they want to fish against just the other boater in that boat.
what I'll say about the boaters. What I'll say about so you're 100% correct. What's fair in life though is you know that too, right?
Yeah.
Like just because you think something should be fair doesn't mean it will. Just like fishing is probably the most unfair sport there is, I swear, in the country. Like I think that's the worst sport there is for actually being fair. When everything we're dealing with like the
Living
environment.
creatures.
Yeah, we're dealing with like I can get live scope and someone else might not be able to afford. I can afford an $80,000 boat. You can afford a 30,000. There, nothing's fair. Like I can know the best fisherman on the lake, and there's not an info rule, and some guy can go get all the info you want. This guy can't get off work, and you can. It's the most semi-unfair sport there is, and there's always an excuse. What I'll say is, at the highest level, I think that's where it should be. You should do the best at making it as fair as possible. And I will say at the highest level, a lot of those co-anglers fished every single event. Like they were traveling. There were guys out there with phenomenal co-anglers and they were phenomenal fishermen. And like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm out there fishing against two of y'all. And it was really on the lower levels. So like the BFLs and their Toyotas, BFLs are like 1 day events. Rarely, the practice time isn't as much, all this other stuff. I've never really seen it matter to me in Toyotas. Even like the Bassmaster Opens, some guys have made comments about the fact that I was glad the Opens finally said, hey, we're not going to sit, because I hate the rule of if we don't have enough boaters, we're not going to, or co-anglers, we're not going to have enough boaters. I think we're past that in the fishing world where we can't be like, hey, look, the luck of the draw might not have a co-angler today. And Bassmaster Opens do that. If there's short 50 co-anglers, 50 guys get to go out there by themselves. And someone might be like, well, that ain't fair. And I'm like, I guess, but man, I'd much rather have that than try to get in than the guy going, well, you're just not going to get to go fish today because we don't have a co-angler. So you're screwed. I'd rather just go out there and fish. Most of us would. I've seen zero problem with it in the Opens. I've never heard anyone really complain. They might make a comment like, man, that's not fair, but none of them stop fishing that event. But they don't bother me in Toyotas and BFLs. I'm sure at times it's not as fair, but we also don't have stupid info rules in Toyotas. And I mean, there's been a bunch of stuff where guys do I'll put it to you this way. There's a lot more shadier stuff going on. When I say it's not maybe against the rules, but like guys getting info and doing all this stuff. And Toyota guys, that's not the highest level. It's not the professional level. I'm just not worried about it. Sure, not worried about it in BFLs.
How I would love to know the answer to this, and I think this would surprise people, but how many current BPT / Elite Series anglers do you think were co-anglers, like basically what was the FLW tour? Because I don't think the elites had co-anglers. It's been a long time.
I can start naming some.
That's what I'm saying. Like I mean, I bet you it's 50%. I mean, just
I was trying to get
show
like 10.
Just to show the talent level of the co-anglers, they are now Elite Series or
50?
BPT type. Oh, dude, I bet you it's high. Yeah. I could rattle off a whole ton of guys I've fished with that are currently fishing at that level. And when I say
Oh,
I fished with, they were my co-angler at some point.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, you're talking about guys at that level. What was the old FLW tour? I mean, they had the same schedule as the pro at that point, right? So they were. You kind of have two types of co-anglers. You have one that's just out there to learn, and then you have the other that's trying to make a bass fishing career. And like, so the guys that were trying to make a career at it were generally excellent fishermen.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Zaldane said he was a co.
really?
He just,
I just don't know. I mean, you weren't here, but I told I had Steven Metter on the other day, and I was like, I fished a Conger one time. I don't even know what tournament it was, but I was 16, and it's the last. I said I'll never fish another one ever again. I just was like, and a lot of it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna go fish the boater side. It was like I had to wait years before I went and fish the boater side. I just was like, I'm not doing that again. That's not for me.
Yeah, honestly, one of my biggest mistakes in my opinion for my career was not fishing as a co, because that is the fastest way to, increase that learning curve. For somebody like myself who had never seen any of these lakes anywhere else around the country, to be able to go there and then fish with a pro who knew how to fish those lakes, man, there was such good information I could have learned, and I didn't do. It took me my first 3 years on tour, I was in the middle of the pack, and I specifically think that was because I had no idea how to fish those lakes. Like, I had to break them down, and it took me several years to figure it out.
Yeah, I think I would never have done so. I would never have done it. I don't care about that. Like, I like going and doing all that anyways, but I'm kind of I don't know if I didn't like I didn't go there and do that. Andrew said he was like, "Man, I'm shocked that more people don't take up the Marshall program."
Mm-hmm.
Because what we talked about as being on tour, it would have been great if I knew I was going to draw Brian Thrift. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of other guys I would have drawn, and I'd have been like, waste of time. And
yeah, but remember, you would get a couple of pros.
No,
and
I know.
And getting you could learn almost as much from somebody who completely didn't know what they were doing as somebody who cracked them good. You could learn from both sides of that.
I'm not talking about the guys who caught them. It wouldn't have been. See, I don't look at stuff as like just because you caught them or not. There were some guys on tour, Matt. I'm not going to say there were some guys on tour you would have learned absolutely nothing with. Okay. Now, I said, no, there is. Dude, they didn't qualify to get there. They were just paid their money. Okay. No, you're wrong. I can name 5. There's so many other ones, though, that like I'd have never fished with Thrift. Because Thrift Thrift was on a different level. And I'm so shocked that more people don't look at the Marshall side of things. Because you can't get a guide trip. There's elite guys out there that you will never, I don't care who you go with, you can't pay that money to get a guide trip with. Like, they don't guide, right? And so I don't care how good a guide is, Thrift's better. Now, Thrift's not on the V8, but I mean, I'm just bringing up Thrift because I just keep using his name. But there's guys, good luck going in. I've got to share the boat with Hackney. Good luck trying to get Hackney to go take you on a guide trip. But if you drew Hackney, you are getting one of the best, most phenomenal guide trips of your entire life for $100. And I am shocked more people don't go do that, because the level of the elite guys is very high because of the whole qualification thing. That's why, and the tour had 160 something guys at one point in time, and a lot of them didn't qualify. The elites, man, it's harder and harder to be an elite right now. So, I mean, you're going to get a guy I don't know if there's a single guy on the elites right now that if I didn't get in their boat, I would probably learn something. I'm saying that now. I'm saying on tour, that was not the case. But now, yes. And so you
And
would
not
learn something.
yeah, I'm not sure if this is true, but I was just told by another angler, BPT angler, that the BPT marshals are actually paid to be there. So you could I believe I could be wrong in this. I haven't looked into this, but I think you can sign up to be a BPT marshal and get paid to do it. Whereas before it was you would pay a fee to be a marshal, but now like I think the BPT are actually paying guys to do it. And I could be wrong, but if you can get paid to do it, that makes it even that much better.
Right. I'm just reading some readings. You don't have much.
Well, I got a hard stop at
I
three
know.
o'clock.
Man, so like so there's a bunch of stuff. I did see I hadn't talked to him. I saw Dakota the other day
Yeah.
left. Um Someone was asking what they thought about that, like kind of
What
last second and stuff, but
what's your thought on that? Do you
um
have a thought on it?
I mean, so you got to realize too, like we had a talk with Dakota before he ever went on the BPT, right? So um when I say it was a talk, it was a we were not in the agreement on what we thought all that was going to be about. So there was a couple of us that was telling him one thing, and then he thought it was going to be something different. And I'm not saying it didn't work out for him because all that stuff, like, look, fishing's fishing. Like that'd be like me saying, "Hey, I didn't want to go fish a BFL the other day because I didn't think it was worth my time, and I could have gone and won it, and even if I won it, it still might not have been. Maybe I had the worst guy in the world that was going to fish the next weekend, went to a spot of mine, and then in a bass champs, he's there, and I don't get to fish where I wanted to and that's for 35,000, not 5,000, right?
Yeah.
It's irrelevant about not saying the outcome, but knowing what you're getting into. So he thought he was getting into one thing. I think he had a different misrepresentation of what but he was young and we had been there. He made the right decision in going. We never told him not to go. We just said, "Hey, this is what you're getting into." I think now he's getting into something and maybe he thinks that maybe the grass is greener on the other side. Um because man, listen, in all this stuff, it's just like you. We've we're all pushing you to go BPT like 100%. Like it's right there at your fingertips and you're now there. 100% go. I would never tell someone not to go. For him, he might just and you never know if it not sponsor related, but he just might be like, "Man, if now may be the time to go if I'm going to go." You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him. I don't think it was crazy late. Like, look, man, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that no one ever talks about. Like, we talk about them. Like me and Watson has been very vocal about them. Like we've tried to shed the light into some people to let them know what's going on. And I don't know if that had anything to do with any of it, but you know,
Yeah,
for him
it is
personally,
it's late timing. I mean, that's for sure. I'm kind of I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, right? But like I'm kind of surprised how it went down, but maybe the organizations have known for longer. I really don't know. My I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and my stance on it is really, at this point, the anglers need to do what makes them happy. I mean, the anglers need to go after what they think is best for their own personal brand. And in this case, I think he's choosing a path that he feels like will be better for him. And he's done so much already. Like, I mean, he's an amazing angler. I personally think he'll qualify. Like, I think he'll qualify for the elites next year. And I think you always take that risk of, you could get stuck in purgatory for a long time. but my money would be on him to qualify. And if he's looking to fish classics and fish the Elite Series because he wants to do that, like there's only one way to do that, and you got to make the decision at some point to go that
Well,
route. So
well,
it's not really it doesn't. I'm not surprised, and I don't say that like
no, I
because
wasn't surprised at
like
all.
I don't talk to Dakota other than like at a tournament where I see him. I have no issues at all with him, but I don't know him really on a personal level. But it really doesn't surprise me to see any angler at this point moving anywhere, because I think anglers are realizing that they have to do what's best for
Well,
themselves.
well, so like I was talking to my wife's parents, my father-in-law and everything, and I was like, he was like, hey, kind of asking about my stuff. This was like yesterday. And I was like, yeah, man, like, we got this tournament coming up and this one. I was like, we kind of got some stuff trying to do. Like, we're looking for a house and doing some different things, me and my wife. And I was like, yeah, this year of fishing is going to be my least expense year ever. I can't wait. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't have very many entry fees. And it's not like he cares that much about, and he pays attention to fishing with me, but that's about it. But he was like, really? I'm like, yeah, man, I got all the freaking these trails for free and this trail for free. I'm like, I've got like 15 tournaments for free next year.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of make a decision about the opens. And I'm like, am I going to go spend a bunch of money on opens that are out of the state, or fish for another? Like, there's so many that they conflicted with that were an hour away. I mean, when the Brandon Belt tournaments are with the boat incentive, 60 grand. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we're going to go fish for tons of money without putting up this like expense. And I'm like, I just go and fish what I think I'm going to make enough money. I could say that the money and I don't, it's very obvious that they show charts on this. So it was on like, it's not like I know his money situation, but he made a bunch of money last year. Cause I think every once in a while, the best on tour does that deal where it's like,
Yeah.
who made the most
Yeah.
money? So he made a lot of money. I think at first he was probably trying to make money in the sport, which is what you should do. That's why I say if anyone wanted to go fish the invitationals next year and it's all paid for, you can make a lot of money doing that if they're all paid for. If they're not paid for, it's going to be tough. But if they're paid, go do it. So if he made a bunch of money and he's not worried about the money aspect of it, then you look at it going, okay. And I'm not saying he wouldn't make more money in the opens, but if the money's somewhat taken care of to a degree and you have a little bit of freedom of what you want to go do, not what you have to go do, he might have
Yeah.
had to have fished the BPT. Maybe he wants to go fish the opens, right? I have figured out in my life what I want to go do, not what I have to go do.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, you've even talked about it. Todd, I would probably do what you do, but I have to go this route because we don't have the same opportunities as you do down in Texas. I agree.
Yeah.
Most of my reasoning I get mad at other people are people that I live by going, I don't understand your thinking because you have this opportunity, but you go do other opportunities that don't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're both in a position right now where we can look at those options and kind of evaluate what we want to do and what's best for our individual careers versus feeling like we have to do the options that are in front of us. Like I think what you're able to do in Texas is fantastic. Like I said, I don't have that option here, but I also have the option at this point, I feel like, to say, you know what? If I want to go fish the elites and the opens are the way to do that, then I feel comfortable I could make that decision and do it, even though I could be taking a financial hit, or I might never get to fish at the professional level again. And I think what you said, if I had to guess, Dakota's probably in that same place where he's much more financially comfortable from a fishing standpoint, right? Like, I'm not saying like I think he feels like he could retire, but I think he's probably looking at it, where maybe for a year or two he's going to take a financial hit, but if he can make his way back to that top level through the Elite Series, he'll be in a better place. And if he's got personal goals that are geared towards fishing the classic, or things that are much more that are only related to the Bassmaster circuit, then he's got to make that move.
Well,
And I want to touch. I saw Dale make a comment on
no,
here.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All I want to say is, I Todd is probably one of the few guys on here, meaning like in the country from a fishing standpoint. I don't think there's one professional angler, Todd, that looks at you as a local angler because you fish Texas. You've done basically everything in the sport and fished at the top level where we consider you a professional angler, even though you're fishing in Texas right now. Like like Dale is off base there, I think,
Well,
very much so.
he's also a troll, and it doesn't bother me. I had a guy the other day get on my Facebook, and he goes, uh, he was from Florida, and he was like, "Hey, man, you've won $500,000 in 20 years fishing FLW, but if you look for like 8 of those years, I was like really young, and I'd fish like one BFL or one, and I'm like."
Well, and that's just one circuit's winnings.
Well, I know, but like they don't know, so it's just them. Some guys like, you don't really do good outside of Texas. And I'm like, my best tournament of the year was in Arkansas this year. The one before that was in Oklahoma. The one before that, and I was like, me and Russell always joke around about this like Rayburn thing. Me and Russell win all of our Angler of the Years, despite Rayburn. Like it's always. All of our best finishes are outside of Rayburn. They're always like our best year our best tournament at the Brain and Belt tournament. We came in 4th at Ray Roberts, which we don't live by. Then we did good at Palestine, and then our best tournament of the year was Choke Canyon, which is 7 hours away from me. So Rayburn was our worst tournament of the entire year. Rayburn, and then Toledo was our second worst tournament. So it's always like that in like the Texas Team Trail. Our best tournament was Ray Roberts, it's all the way up in Dallas. So it's always funny that people always say that, but like if you ask us, we're like, oh, we're scared to death of Rayburn and Toledo. That's where we're going to get killed, you know. But I don't, and I know you got to go. I'm going to stay on longer because I'm going to address one thing because of some things, but I know you got to go at 3.
I'll listen in the car as I'm driving away, but thanks for having me on. And
no, what do you mean having you on? This is you're the one that missed my weekly, like this is our weekly deal.
I know. I didn't even get, well, I don't know if you want to talk about it. I was gone last week in Houston and I was unavailable.
I want to know all of that stuff because I tried to get you to get away for a day to go fishing, but I know you had to work. I know.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys.
All right. I'll stay on. So I'll holler at you. So, all right. I was going to address this. Now, y'all know how honest I get with all this stuff. Guys, it's real easy. You can see the trolls. Trolls, for the most part, like I find funny and don't bother me and whatever. And they don't even, it's whatever. And a lot of the times I really like on like Facebook and stuff, I like commenting back. My wife hates it. I love it. I absolutely love it. It actually makes my day go by better. And it allows me to like get off steam because I like just like gassing with them. Because usually most trolls they make stupid takes. They're really bad with information. Like they have the worst information in the world. And so it's great because they actually put it out they actually write it out, and it looks really dumb a lot of times what they say. And I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I'm just saying that's what it is. So I've never worried about it. I've never banned someone. I've never done any of that stuff. I will if like there's a whole bunch of cussing or like getting really personal, like bad attacks. I'm not even saying with me, just in general. Funny trolls, oh my gosh. Like, dude, funny trolls are the best. Like, and you can tell that they're trolling, and it's fine. It's no big deal. The one thing I'll say is I was waiting for him to come on the other day, and he didn't come on, is Oh Spooky. And I was going to address Spooky. Spooky, we all know is trolling. I don't even know if he's trolling, but he's just like causing a stir. Well, the other day I got something from YouTube. YouTube like sent me a message, and I was going, what's this about? And they were about to limit, like I don't know if I was going to get not kicked off, but like put in time. I don't know. And it was something about comments, and I'm like, I didn't see any bad comments. And then I started kind of looking through, and it was this kind of this, it was him, and I don't think he was making bad comments, but the problem was he was being who he was, and then other people were getting upset about it. And that's where I was going to like kind of give him a formal warning, going, hey, look, you don't bother me one bit. But if you start taking over my comments and then people, this isn't like, I don't believe we're out here trying to make up drama, right? That's not what we're about. We might talk about things to let y'all know what's going on, but we're not out here calling out anglers, hey man, you did this to me. Like, that's not what this channel is about. I never wanted it to be about that. Matt doesn't want to, Andrew, all of it. Like, we just try to tell the truth, and be honest about things and let y'all in on certain things about the industry, fishing, whatever it might be. However, I will take a stand because it is my platform that I don't want it going that route. So at some point in time, though, he has to realize that if people don't want to come to my channel because of him and they're getting upset and like, hey man, we're just kind of tired of him, right? Like, I'm gonna ban you. I don't want to, but I will, because I'm like, hey, it's not worth it to the thousands of other people that don't want to see it. It doesn't bother me, but if they don't want to see it, I don't blame them. Like, it gets old, right? I mean, he got whatever. So this is a warning to him. I don't even care if he probably not even gonna watch this. And if he ever gets on again live, I'll let him know right then and there too. Everyone else is cool. I don't mind. I don't mind. Dribble, whatever. I don't know his. I still think it's a fake name, but whatever. He don't bother me. You can say I'm not a pro. I didn't ever say I was a pro. I think I can talk about pro fishing. I think I can do that. I don't see why I can't. I'll put it to you this way: if you call me out on being on something that I'm wrong about, do that. Don't say I don't know just because I'm not fishing the elites next year. But we usually have pretty good insight into things. So, chances are we do know what we're talking about. And if you don't, if I'm wrong, by all means, say it in the comments. But don't just be like, well, you're not there, so you're wrong, or you don't know anything. Maybe I don't know anything, but at least call me out when I'm wrong. Like, tell me where I'm wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. Show Matt where he's wrong, or like something like that. But dude, I got to go too. My phone, since I hotspotted it, I didn't think about that. I'm about to lose service. Thanks for guys. Hey, by the way, if y'all are still on, he said I didn't really tell Zona I was going to go live with him. So, I'm about to text him and say, hey, by the way, we're going live, right? You're going to have to do this. So we'll see if he wants to go live or not. There was a comment in there that says, man, he might be scared too. He might be. He's got a lot. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But I plan on having him on this week. I'm going to probably maybe shoot for like Thursday or something. Wednesday or Thursday. I'm going to text him now, see which day he can go. I'll try to go to my YouTube, my home page, and look, I'll put the comment on and let it know when we plan on doing it. Now, it should be, hopefully he'll post it on his Instagram, Facebook. I usually try to do it on mine. So look for that. So that one's going to be fun because Zona's crazy. But anyways, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all being here. And yeah, hopefully I can get Zona on live so you can ask him all the stupid questions because yeah, he'll probably give you stupid answers. All right. See y'all.